The car purred to a stop at the iron gates of Maple Elite Academy, its emblem gleaming gold in the morning sun. Behind the tinted glass, Emma Parker sat stiff-backed, fingers twisting the strap of her backpack as if it were an anchor to a world she'd already lost. "Please, Mom, don't make me go," she murmured, voice tight. Her mother didn't look at her. "Emma, it's what your father wanted. You know that." The silence that followed was heavy with ghosts. Only a month had passed since the construction accident that had taken Robert Parker's life, and Emma still half expected him to walk through the door each morning with his coffee mug and that crooked grin. But now, all that was left of him was a name on a scholarship paper and the faint scent of cedar that still clung to his fencing gear. "This could be your chance," her mother said quietly. "Your father dreamed of seeing you fence for Maple Elite. Don't let that die with him." Emma looked through the window at the sprawling campus. Marble steps, manicured lawns, students in designer uniforms. They looked more like young socialites than teenagers. "It's not my world, Mom," she whispered. Her mother's eyes softened for a moment before hardening again. "Maybe not yet, but you'll find your place." When the car door opened, a gust of cool September air brushed against her face. The scent of money lingered everywhere. Polished leather, perfume, and old wealth. Inside the main hall, the hum of chatter quieted as Emma walked past. Her uniform, still crisp from the package, looked too plain compared to the tailored jackets and imported shoes that surrounded her. She clutched her folder like armor. Then, collision. A shoulder hit hers hard enough to send her stumbling. Cold liquid splashed down her front. "Watch where you're going next time, huh?" Emma blinked through the mess. Standing before her was a tall boy with storm-gray eyes and the kind of posture that came from being obeyed his entire life. A smirk tugged at his lips. "You should feel honored," he said, tilting his head. "Not everyone gets baptized by the Rowan Calloway." "Excuse me?" she thought. "You want to say that to my face?" He raised a brow, clearly amused. "I just did." Her fists clenched. Arrogant jerk. The hallway buzzed with gasps. Nobody talked back to Rowan Calloway. But Emma Parker had already turned on her heel, cheeks flushed, her heart pounding. "Never show your face to me again," she shouted over her shoulder. Outside, the sting of humiliation faded into disbelief. What a first day. She tugged at the soaked shirt, muttering, "Stupid school. Stupid rich kids." A gentle voice startled her. "Hey, I've got a spare t-shirt. Looks like you could use it." In the turn to see a girl with a messy ponytail and warm brown eyes. "Oh my God, you're a lifesaver. I'm Hazel Jones. Emma Parker." Hazel grinned. "Welcome to Maple Elite Academy, home of the rich, ruthless, and ridiculously good-looking. Motto, money speaks louder than your GPA." Emma laughed, despite herself. "Sounds like my personal hell." "Pretty much." Hazel glanced around, lowering her voice. "Okay, see those guys everyone's staring at?" 4 boys walked down the marble stairs as if the entire campus existed just to frame their entrance. Cameras, real or imaginary, seemed to follow them. "That's them," Hazel whispered. "The Big Four. They're heirs to some of the richest families in the country. Liam Davenport, tech empire. Carl Reed, arms and shady deals, rumor has it. August Langford, artist and auction house heir. And the leader, Rowan Calloway." Period. That Rowan Calloway?" he said dryly. "His family owns half the city. They're richer than the people on Forbes, and probably own Forbes too." Emma folded her arms. Perfect. My first enemy is the king of Maple Elite. Hazel chuckled. Careful, new girl. Around here, going against the Big Four is social suicide. Then I guess I'm already dead, Emma said, walking toward her next class. Paplima. You. The boy stammered. My name's Noah. I don't give a damn what your name is, Rowan snapped. Emma's pulse spiked. He's doing it again. Before she could think, she marched forward. Hey! Leave him alone! Rowan turned slowly. Recognition flickered across his face. You again. That's right, she said, squaring her shoulders. First you ruined my uniform. Now you're picking on someone who can't fight back. What is wrong with you? He frowned, clearly unused to being challenged. You have no idea what's going on. I don't need to. You're a bully, Rowan Calloway. Gasps spread like wildfire. You think being rich means you can treat people like dirt? It doesn't make you powerful. It makes you pathetic. Rowan's jaw tightened. The hell did you just say to me? What, are you gonna hit a girl now? For a heartbeat, silence reigned. Then one of Rowan's friends, August, stepped between them. Okay. Let's all breathe. Rowan's gaze lingered on Emma, burning, conflicted. Finally he muttered, All right, new girl. I'll remember you. Better watch your back. I'm not scared of you, she said. You should be. As he walked away, Hazel grabbed Emma's arm. Are you crazy? That's Rowan Calloway. He and his friends basically run this place. I don't care who they are, Emma said. Being popular doesn't give them the right to act like tyrants. Hazel stared at her, then smiled faintly. You've got guts, Parker. Just don't die, okay? But the school had already noticed. By the end of the day, the hallways buzzed with the same phrase. Emma Parker stood up to Rowan Calloway. And that was enough to make her public enemy number one. By the second week, Emma Parker had become a whispered name in every hallway of Maple Elite Academy. Some whispered it with awe. Most whispered it with malice. The girl who stood up to Rowan Calloway. It didn't matter that she hadn't meant to start a rebellion. She'd done the unthinkable. She'd embarrassed the most powerful boy in school. And people didn't just do that here. Every time she passed the student courtyard, heads turned. Conversations halted. Even the teachers seemed to glance nervously her way, as though she carried trouble like perfume. Hazel did her best to keep Emma's spirits up. They're just jealous, she said one afternoon, as they sat under the sycamore tree that overlooked the sports field. Half the girls here would sell their designer shoes to have Rowan even look at them. I don't want him to look at me, Emma muttered. I want him to forget I exist. Hazel smiled knowingly. Yeah, good luck with that. It started with whispers. Her fencing uniform went missing. Her locker was jammed shut. Her gym shoes ended up in the fountain, tied together with gold ribbon. Small things, but enough to make every day a quiet battle. And then came the trio, the self-proclaimed VCA, Maple Elite's reigning clique. Vera, Chelsea, and Amy. They appeared at Emma's locker like vultures circling fresh prey, their smiles sharp as glass. Well, if it isn't the brave little scholarship girl, Chelsea drawled. You really think you can disrespect our boys and walk around like you belong here? Your boys, Emma echoed, shutting her locker. You make it sound like you own them. Vera smirked. We kind of do. Rowan, August, Liam, Carl, they trust us. We're the Big Four's inner circle. More like their fan club, Emma said. Gasps. Hazel winced beside her. Chelsea's expression hardened. You've got quite a mouth, newbie. Maybe it's time someone taught you some respect. Before Emma could react, Amy shoved her shoulder. Her books hit the ground, scattering across the hallway. Laughter rippled through the crowd that had already gathered. Pathetic, Chelsea sneered. You think you're so special because Rowan noticed you? You're just his next target. Emma straightened slowly, her eyes cold. If you're done performing, I've got class. Then she walked away, leaving them standing there, shocked that someone had dared to dismiss them. That afternoon, in the boys' lounge across campus, Rowan Calloway sat sprawled on the leather couch, flipping a coin between his fingers. His friends, August, Carl, and Liam, watched him with the mix of amusement and wariness, reserved for a lion in a bad mood. She kicked my ass, Rowan muttered under his breath. Carl snorted. Wait, what? She actually stood up to me. Twice. In front of everyone. August leaned forward. She's different, isn't she? Rowan glared. Don't start. Liam smirked. Come on, man. Admit it. You're talking about her more than your car collection. That's saying something. She's not special, Rowan snapped. She's a problem, and problems get dealt with. Carl leaned back, grinning. What are you gonna do? Sneak a snake in her locker? Rowan's lips curved faintly. Maybe something better. But August's gaze sharpened. Rowan, don't go too far. She's not like the others. Rowan's smirk faded. For a fleeting moment, guilt flickered behind his eyes. Then he masked it with arrogance. You worry too much, August. The next morning, Emma opened her locker and nearly screamed. A live garter snake slithered out, coiling around her books. Gasps erupted down the hall. Someone laughed. Loud, cruel, familiar. Rowan Calloway leaned casually against the opposite wall, hands in his pockets, eyes glinting with mischief. Guess you didn't like my little gift, he said. Emma's heart thundered with both fear and fury. She grabbed the nearest broom and gently guided the snake away, refusing to give him the satisfaction of seeing her panic. Then she turned to face him. You've got a problem with me, Calloway? You handle it face to face, not with dirty little pranks. The hallway went still. Rowan's smirk faltered, just slightly. No one had ever talked to him like that, not without trembling. You wanted a fight, Emma said, voice steady. You've got one. She pushed past him, leaving him staring after her, equal parts furious and intrigued. Carl whistled low. Dude, she's kinda hot when she's mad. Rowan shot him a glare. Shut up, but he couldn't stop replaying her words. That night, Rowan found himself staring at the ceiling of his room, his mind strangely loud. Who does she think she is? He thought. No one talks to me like that. Yet he couldn't shake the image of her eyes. Fierce, unyielding, alive. He'd expected fear. What he'd found instead was defiance. Fine, he decided. If she wants my attention, she's got it. By Monday, his retaliation had gone from subtle to open war. Emma's seat in class was moved without explanation. Her fencing schedule was mysteriously adjusted, cutting her from practice slots. Her classmates avoided her, afraid to be caught in the crossfire. Hazel confronted Rowan in the cafeteria once, trembling but brave. What do you get out of this? Making her miserable? Rowan didn't answer. He simply watched Emma from across the room, an unreadable look in his eyes. When she finally caught him staring, he didn't look away. That evening, as the sunset burned orange across the school's courtyard, Emma stood alone by the practice hall. The fencing room was locked, her name missing from the roster. Her father's words echoed in her mind. Don't give up. no matter how hard they push. Fine, she thought, gripping the fence post. If Rowan Calloway wanted to break her spirit, he'd picked the wrong girl. Behind her, footsteps approached. Slow, deliberate. "I told you to watch your back," came Rowan's low voice. Emma turned, exhaustion giving way to fire. "And I told you I'm not scared of you." He stepped closer, the late sunlight cutting across his sharp features. "You should be," something she didn't understand. "No," he said softly, "because I don't lose." He brushed past her, leaving the faint scent of his cologne in the air. Cedar and trouble. Emma exhaled, shaken despite herself. That night, Hazel sat cross-legged on Emma's bed, scrolling through her phone. "He's obsessed with you, you know." Emma looked up from her homework. "He's obsessed with winning. I'm just his latest target." Hazel grinned. "Either way, you're living rent-free in his head." Emma smiled faintly. "Then I hope it's messy and loud in there." Across town, Rowan Calloway stood in front of his mirror, jaw tight. He couldn't explain why every insult from Emma Parker echoed louder than any praise he'd ever gotten. "She thinks I'm pathetic." For the first time in years, the Prince of Maple Elite Academy didn't know how to feel. But one thing was certain. The game between them had only just begun. The week began with storm clouds brewing over Maple Elite Academy. The kind of gray that felt like it carried bad omens. Emma Parker stepped off the bus, adjusting the strap of her fencing bag, unaware that the school's prince had decided that today, her defiance would meet its breaking point. Rowan Calloway was waiting. He stood beneath the courtyard archway, surrounded by his entourage, the Big Four, and a sea of spectators who never missed a chance to witness their drama. His expression was cool, unreadable, but his eyes followed her every move. Emma could feel it. Every step she took seemed to echo louder against the cobblestones. Every glance from a student filled with warning. "Guess she didn't get the memo?" someone whispered. "She's dead." Hazel tried to catch her arm. "Emma, maybe don't." But Emma didn't stop. She walked straight toward the lion's den. Rowan's voice cut through the chatter. "You see what happens when you go against me?" Silence fell instantly. He stepped forward, his words precise, rehearsed, cruel. "I can do whatever I want to you, Emma Parker. I own this school. I own you." Laughter rippled from the crowd, the kind that sounded like knives. The girls of VCA stood nearby, smirking with satisfaction. Hazel's voice trembled. "Emma, please don't." But Emma wasn't going to beg. Her hands trembled slightly as she looked at Rowan. The flawless heir, the untouchable elite, the bully who couldn't stand being defied. "Wow," she said softly. "So this is what power looks like? A boy surrounded by an audience because he's too afraid to stand alone?" A hush swept across the courtyard. Rowan blinked. For a second, his mask cracked. Then his voice hardened. "You'll regret that." He nodded once. The crowd surged with mockery, students surrounding her, shouting, laughing. Someone threw a cup of water. Someone else shoved her shoulder. Emma stumbled, but didn't fall. She lifted her chin. "You want me to beg?" she said, her voice rising over the chaos. "You want to see me break? Not gonna happen." Her voice carried across the courtyard like thunder. The laughter faltered. Even Rowan hesitated. He hadn't expected her strength, and it unnerved him. For the first time, he wondered if maybe the game had gone too far. Later that afternoon, Emma found herself hiding behind the gym bleachers, wiping the dirt from her hands. Hazel found her there, holding a small paper bag. Hazel, shook her head, eyes red. I'm sorry, Emma. I'm not brave like you. I can't keep fighting them. Emma's chest tightened. Hazel, my family's bankrupt. I can't afford to lose my scholarship. I won't be here tomorrow. Hazel handed her the bag. Here, clothes from Misguided. I figured you'd need them. Emma hugged her tightly. Thank you. Hazel's voice cracked. Please don't let them win. Across the quad, Rowan slammed his locker shut so hard the echo rattled. She humiliated me again. Carl whistled. Damn, man. She's really living rent-free in your head. Rowan glared. I want Emma Parker to come to me begging for forgiveness. Got it? The group exchanged wary glances. August sighed. You're not getting what this is turning into, are you? What's that supposed to mean? Rowan shot back. August met his eyes evenly. You're obsessed with her. Rowan's jaw tightened. Shut up! But the words lodged deep in his chest. Because they were true. That night, Emma stood by her bedroom window, staring at her father's old fencing medal. The city lights shimmered in the distance. Mom, I can't do this anymore. I don't belong with those people. Her mother turned from the kitchen, wiping her hands. Emma, your father wanted you to be strong. You have his talent, his fire. Don't give up now. Emma swallowed hard. But what if I can't win? Then fight anyway, her mother said softly. That's what he would have done. Emma nodded, determination hardening in her eyes. Fine. Rowan Calloway wants a fight. I'll give him one. The next morning dawned brighter. Deceptively calm. Emma crossed the school courtyard with steady steps, but her heart hammered beneath her uniform. Halfway across the lawn, she froze. Rowan was there, crouched on the ground, gently petting a stray kitten caught in the bushes. He murmured softly to it, his voice low, gentle. Easy, buddy. Almost there. Emma blinked. Wait, he's helping it? For a fleeting moment, the cruel, untouchable prince looked almost human. He looked up suddenly, catching her stare. What? He said. Did you come all this way just to see me? Ew, no, she stammered. Never mind. Then stop staring, Parker. Stop doing surprising things, Calloway, she shot back. He smirked, turning back to the kitten. But as she walked away, something strange twisted inside her chest. Confusion, curiosity, and something else she didn't dare name. That afternoon, the chaos returned. Emma had been cornered by the VCA girls near the storage room. Their laughter was sharp and cruel. Go beg Rowan for mercy, Chelsea hissed. Or transfer while you still can. Let me go, Emma shouted, pushing back, but they were too many. Then suddenly, enough. The voice was quiet but deadly. The girls froze. Rowan stood at the doorway, his expression unreadable. August at his shoulder. Leave, all of you, Rowan said. But she... Now. The hallway emptied fast. Emma looked up, breathing hard. You set this up, didn't you? Rowan's eyes darkened. It was supposed to be a prank. I didn't tell them to touch you. So you admit it, she said coldly. He rubbed the back of his neck. I went too far. She glared at him. You think money fixes everything? You broke my brooch, the last thing I had from my dad. I'll pay for it. You don't get it! Her voice cracked, and for the first time Rowan saw tears glinting in her eyes. Not weakness, but grief. You want to know what's pathetic, Calloway? She whispered. You call people names, start rumors, play your little power games, and you think that makes you strong? But it just proves how small you are. Rowan stood frozen. Now leave me alone, she said, brushing past him. But then she stopped, turned, and added, and for the record, I've never even dated anyone, never held hands. So when you called me a slut, you made yourself the joke. His eyes widened. I never. Save it, she cut him off. I'm done. She walked away, her shoulders straight, leaving Rowan rooted in silence. August stepped up beside him. She's something else, huh? Rowan didn't reply. He was still staring after her, his heart beat louder than the noise in his head. Maybe August was right. Maybe it wasn't hate at all. That night, in his empty mansion overlooking the city, Rowan stood by the window, watching the rain fall. He pressed his forehead against the cold glass and whispered, almost to himself, "What the hell are you doing to me, Emma Parker?" And for the first time in his life, Rowan Calloway, the boy who had everything, felt completely, utterly lost. The first chill of autumn drifted through Maple Elite Academy, threading between marble columns and manicured hedges. The school's notice boards were plastered with posters of gold lettering and glittering fonts. Homecoming Gala, Saturday evening. For most students, it was the highlight of the year. For Emma Parker, it felt like another battlefield dressed in silk and chandeliers. She sat on the edge of the fountain after class, her fencing bag beside her, watching groups of girls giggle over designer gowns and date lists. Every name whispered was a reminder of how much she didn't fit in. Hazel dropped beside her with 2 cups of cocoa. "So, who are you going with?" Emma scoffed softly. "Myself, if I even go." "Oh, come on. You could totally show up and outshine every stuck-up heiress here." "I'm not sure humiliation's my color," Emma murmured, taking a sip. Hazel studied her. "You know Rowan's planning something for the dance, right?" Emma's hand froze midair. "What do you mean, something?" "Rumor is he's been talking about you again, loudly." Emma rolled her eyes, trying to ignore the sudden flutter in her chest. Let him talk. I'm not his entertainment. But deep down, she knew Rowan Calloway didn't just talk. He orchestrated. Across campus, in the elite lounge that smelled faintly of leather and cedar, Rowan stood before a wall-length mirror, adjusting his tie. His reflection stared back, with equal parts arrogance and confusion. Carl sprawled on the sofa, watching him. "You're seriously thinking about asking her to homecoming?" Rowan turned slowly. "Maybe." Liam laughed. "You, the guy who swore off school dances after that debutante scandal?" Rowan's jaw ticked. "She humiliated me, Liam. In front of everyone. You really think I'll let that be the last word?" August, who'd been sketching quietly near the window, looked up. "Rowan, you keep saying it's revenge, but you're not convincing anyone, least of all yourself." Rowan's eyes narrowed. "You think I like her?" August smiled faintly. "I think she makes you feel something you can't control, and you hate that." Rowan didn't respond. He looked back at the mirror and saw not the flawless heir everyone else admired, but a boy who couldn't stop thinking about the girl who refused to kneel. And air quotes. That Friday morning, the air buzzed with anticipation. Students clustered around lockers, comparing corsages, tickets, and limousine bookings. Emma tried to keep her head down, her earbuds shielding her from the gossip that followed her like a shadow. "Did you hear? He's gonna do it today. Rowan Calloway's gonna ask her?" She sighed. "Please don't be what I think this is." When she stepped into the courtyard, it was already happening. A circle had formed, phones raised, voices whispering. Rowan stood at the center, sunlight glinting off his hair like a spotlight. "Emma Parker," he called, loud enough to silence the crowd. Every head turned. Emma froze mid-step, heat flooding her cheeks. He smiled, that devastating, practiced smile that had probably broken hearts before breakfast. "In front of everyone here, your friends, your foes, your admirers, I'm giving you a chance." Hazel's whisper reached her ear. "Oh no, he's not." "I'm inviting you," Rowan continued, "to the homecoming gala. With me." Gasps erupted. Emma blinked, certain she'd misheard. "You're what?" Rowan's grin widened. "Come on, Parker. Let's make it official. Be my date." For a heartbeat, she saw the boy from the courtyard, the bully who'd taunted her, humiliated her, made her cry. Then she saw the kitten rescuer, the boy who looked human for a fleeting second. But the whole school was watching, waiting for her to break. She straightened. "Did you hit your head, Rowan?" The laughter started small, then grew. "I will never, ever be your girlfriend." The crowd collectively inhaled. Rowan's smirk faltered. "Wait, did you just reject me?" "You heard me." Gasps turned to murmurs and then to outright chaos. "Is she nuts? She said no to him?" Emma turned and walked away before the burn behind her eyes could become tears. Behind her, Rowan's mask cracked, not in anger this time, but in something far more dangerous: disbelief. The humiliation hit Rowan like a punch he didn't see coming. When the crowd dispersed, his friends found him still standing there, hands clenched, expression blank. Liam spoke first. "You okay, man?" Rowan's voice was low. "She rejected me." Carl tried to stifle a laugh. "Well, yeah, you kinda set yourself up for that." Rowan turned slowly, eyes glacial. Not helping. August closed his sketchbook. "You embarrassed her publicly, Rowan." "What did you expect?" "I expected her to see sense," Rowan snapped. "To say yes." But even as he said it, the words rang hollow. He stormed off, the echo of laughter chasing him down the marble corridor. Meanwhile, Emma found herself in the bathroom, gripping the sink, breathing hard. She looked at her reflection, wet eyes, trembling fingers. "Why do you let him get to you?" she whispered. "He's just a spoiled prince." The door creaked. Hazel peeked in. That was iconic. Stupid, but iconic. Emma let out a shaky laugh. "I just couldn't let him win." Hazel smiled softly. "You never do." That night, the whispers spread like wildfire across every group chat. Screens lit up with photos of Rowan's shocked face. Captions ranging from "Queen Emma" to "She's so dead" Monday. But in one of the mansion suites overlooking the city, Rowan Calloway sat alone, staring at his phone. Every replay of that moment twisted deeper inside him, her voice calm but defiant. "I will never, ever be your girlfriend." He slammed the phone down, running a hand through his hair. Why did it hurt? He'd been insulted before, challenged before. None of it had mattered. So why did she matter? They poured a glass of whiskey he wouldn't drink and muttered, "You've got me losing my mind, Parker." By Monday, the world had turned sideways again. Rowan was quiet, unsettlingly quiet. The halls that usually buzzed with his laughter now carried an undercurrent of tension. Students gave Emma wary looks, as if she'd awakened a sleeping dragon. But instead of retaliation, Rowan did something no one expected. He started being nice. He held doors open. He offered polite greetings. Once, he even returned a dropped pen. Emma didn't buy it for a second. "Is this some kind of trap?" she asked Hazel as they walked to class. "Probably, but enjoy it while it lasts." Then one afternoon, Rowan cornered her near the gym entrance, not aggressively, but with an unreadable calm. "Emma." She sighed. "What do you want, Rowan?" "To talk." "About what?" "Your next prank?" He ignored the jab. "You've got the wrong idea about me." She laughed bitterly. "I've got the exact idea about you." He stepped closer, lowering his voice. "Then let me prove you wrong." Her pulse skipped. "You think a few fake smiles erase everything you've done?" "No," he said softly, "but it's a start." She blinked, unsure if she'd heard him right. Before she could reply, he turned and walked away, leaving her more confused than angry. That evening, she told Hazel everything. "He's up to something," Emma said. "He's pretending to be decent just to mess with my head." Hazel raised an eyebrow. "And if he's not pretending?" Emma scoffed. "Then he's lost his mind." Meanwhile, Rowan sat on his balcony, the city glowing below. He couldn't stop thinking about her expression when he'd apologized. The flicker of surprise in her eyes. Maybe August was right. Maybe he wanted more than her forgiveness. He hated how that made him feel. Vulnerable. Exposed. But the thought of her hating him was worse. He picked up his phone, thumb hovering over her number, then remembered he didn't have it. "Unbelievable," he muttered to himself. "The one girl I can't control." Homecoming night arrived like a movie scene come to life. The gym had been transformed. Golden chandeliers, velvet drapes, soft music spilling from hidden speakers. Emma hesitated at the entrance, clutching the hem of her borrowed dress. Hazel squeezed her hand. "You look incredible. Just don't let them get to you." Emma nodded, though her stomach twisted. She stepped inside and instantly felt every pair of eyes turn her way. Whispers spread like wildfire. "That's her. The scholarship girl. The one who rejected Rowan Calloway." Before she could react, a familiar trio appeared. Vera, Chelsea, and Amy, gleaming in sequined perfection. "Well, look who showed up," Chelsea said, sweetly. "The entertainment's here." Emma tried to step past them, but Vera blocked her. "You embarrassed our prince. Did you really think we'd let that go?" "Move," Emma said evenly. Amy smirked. "Or what, you'll fence us?" They laughed, and then the laughter turned cruel. In one motion, Chelsea tilted a glass of punch over Emma's shoulder. Scarlet liquid soaked through silk. Gasps echoed through the hall. Emma froze, mortified. The laughter stung sharper than the cold drink. But before she could speak, a low voice cut through the noise. "That's enough." The crowd parted. Rowan stood in the doorway, his tux crisp, his expression deadly. He strode forward, eyes fixed on the girls. "Which one of you did that?" Vera swallowed. "Rowan, we were just—" "I said which one?" No one answered. He turned to the crowd. "Listen up, everyone. From this point forward, no one touches Emma Parker. She's mine." The room went silent. Emma's breath caught. "Rowan, what are you doing?" "Protecting you," he said simply, "whether you like it or not." She stared at him, angry, confused, but also shaken by the sincerity in his eyes. The night blurred after that. Emma found herself outside on the terrace, the cold air biting at her damp dress. She leaned against the railing, trying to steady her breath. Behind her, the door creaked open. "I thought I told you not to follow me," she said. "I didn't listen," Rowan replied, stepping into the moonlight. "You never do, either." She turned. "Why did you do that? Claim me like I'm something you own?" "I didn't mean it like that." "Then how did you mean it?" He exhaled, frustrated. "You don't get it, Parker. They were never going to stop. Not until someone made them." "And that someone had to be you?" He hesitated. "I couldn't watch them hurt you again." Her voice softened, barely audible. "Why do you care?" Rowan looked at her for a long time. Then, quietly, "Because I can't stand seeing you cry." The words hung between them like fragile glass. Emma's heart pounded. "You're impossible." "Yeah," he said, taking a small step closer. "But maybe I can change." She blinked. "You change?" "Try me." Silence stretched, then thunder rumbled in the distance. A drop of rain landed on her cheek, cold and sudden. Rowan smiled faintly. "Guess the universe likes dramatic timing." Before she could reply, lightning flashed, and he kissed her. It wasn't the arrogant, claiming kiss she'd expected. It was hesitant, searching, real. For a heartbeat, she didn't push him away. Then the thunder cracked again, and she pulled back, breathless. "You can't just—" "I know," he said, "but I had to." She stared at him, the bully, the prince, the contradiction she couldn't unravel, and whispered, "You're still an idiot." He smiled. "Maybe, but I'm your idiot." For the first time, Emma didn't correct him. The rain came harder, blurring the world around them. And for a moment, just one, the war between them paused. The morning after the dance arrived wrapped in quiet disbelief. Maple Elite Academy hummed with gossip again, but this time the tone was different. Half wonder, half confusion. "Did you see them? Rowan Calloway kissed her. Maybe he actually likes her." Emma Parker kept her eyes on the pavement as she crossed the courtyard, every whispered fragment trailing her like a cloud. The sun glared off the marble, reflecting the flush that kept rising to her cheeks whenever she remembered the way Rowan had looked at her beneath the rain. She told herself it meant nothing, a mistake, an impulse, but the memory refused to fade. Hazel jogged up beside her, clutching 2 coffees. "So," she said, half grinning, "you and the Prince of MEA, huh?" "Don't start," Emma muttered. "I'm not judging. I'm just saying, half the school's convinced it's official." Emma stopped short. "Official?" Hazel nodded. "Rowan told everyone you're his girlfriend." The words hit like a slap. "He what?" "Yeah," loudly, in homeroom. Emma stared at the ground, anger prickling through the confusion. He had no right. Across campus, Rowan basked in a different kind of chaos. His usual entourage trailed him as he crossed the quad, fielding congratulations and curious smiles. He looked every bit the untouchable heir again. But inside, he was restless. He hadn't planned to say it, that Emma was his girlfriend. It had just slipped out, raw and reckless, because for the first time the word mine hadn't felt like a threat. Liam clapped his shoulder. "Man, you've officially broken Mia. The girls are mourning." Carl laughed. "And August is going to kill you when he hears." Rowan's smirk faded. "August?" "Yeah, he's back from Europe today." The name lingered like static. August Langford. his oldest friend, his quietest rival, and the one person who'd started looking at Emma the same way he did. The bell rang. By third period, word had already reached the art wing. August dropped his pencil mid-sketch, blinking at the text glowing on his phone. Rowan Calloway announced Emma Parker as his girlfriend. He exhaled slowly, the charcoal dust curling from his fingers. He'd spent the past week convincing himself that distance would clear his head, that the trip, the galleries, the constant motion would dull the ache Emma had left behind. But now, with one headline, it came rushing back. He closed his sketchbook, whispering, "Guess I was too late." Emma stormed into the cafeteria at lunch, every table falling silent as she approached Rowan's. The Big Four watched her like spectators at a gladiator match. "Calloway," she said, her voice sharp enough to cut glass. He looked up, cool as ever. "Parker." "Care to explain why the entire school thinks I'm dating you?" Rowan leaned back, arms crossed. "Because you are." Gasps rippled. Emma slammed her palm on the table. "No, I'm not." He tilted his head, unbothered. "You kissed me. You kissed me! And you didn't stop me." The silence stretched, thick with tension. Her cheeks burned. "That doesn't give you the right to claim me." Rowan's gaze softened for a fraction of a second. "Maybe not, but I'm not taking it back." She blinked. "You—" He stood, lowering his voice so only she could hear. "If calling you mine keeps them from hurting you again, then let them believe it." For a heartbeat, she saw the truth in his eyes. Raw, unpolished concern. Then anger flared again. "I don't need a savior, Rowan. I need you to stop lying." She turned on her heel and left him standing there, applause and murmurs swelling behind her. After classes, the rain returned, soft, steady, cleansing. Emma ducked under the eaves of the art building, waiting for Hazel, when a familiar voice called her name. "Emma." She looked up. August stood a few feet away, an umbrella in hand, his usual quiet confidence shadowed by something heavier. "You're back," she said, surprised by the warmth that crept into her tone. "Yeah." He offered the umbrella. "You'll get soaked." She hesitated, then stepped beneath it. The space between them felt too small, too charged. "I heard about the dance," he said carefully, "and about Rowan." Emma groaned. "Please tell me you don't believe the rumors." August's smile was sad. "I don't know what to believe anymore." They walked in silence, the rain drumming gently above them. Finally he said, "You know, the day we met, I thought you looked familiar. I figured it out while I was away." She frowned. "Familiar?" He reached into his pocket and pulled out a tiny, worn keychain shaped like a blue star. "You gave me this when we were kids, at a summer art camp. I lost it for years, until I found it again last month." Emma stared, memory flooding back. Muddy shoes, lemonade stands, a little boy crying because he dropped his sketchbook in the lake. August. "I can't believe you kept it," she whispered. "I can't believe fate put you back in my life," he said. And for a moment, the world quieted around them. Across campus, Rowan watched from the gym window, jaw tightening as he saw the two silhouettes under one umbrella. His pulse kicked faster, unfamiliar and ugly. Carl nudged him. "Dude." "You're gonna crack the glass." Rowan forced himself to step back. "It's nothing." "Right," Carl said dryly. "That's why you're glaring holes through them." Rowan didn't answer. The image of August's easy smile burned behind his eyelids long after the rain stopped. The next day, the tension between the two boys snapped. It happened after fencing practice. The air smelled of sweat and metal, and the rest of the team had already left. August lingered, coiling his foil. Rowan entered, still in uniform, shoulders squared. "You've been spending a lot of time with her," Rowan said. August looked up, calm but wary. "She's my friend." "That's not how it looks. Maybe you should trust her more." Rowan's laugh was sharp. "Trust from you?" August's jaw tightened. "We've been friends since we were kids. Don't do this." Rowan stepped closer. "Then stop looking at her like that." Silence. The rain hammered against the roof again, matching the pulse in both their throats. Finally, August said quietly, "You don't own her, Rowan." "You don't even know what she wants." Rowan's reply was barely a whisper. "I know what I want." And that was the moment everything changed. By midweek, the school had divided itself neatly into camps. Those who sided with the golden heir, and those secretly rooting for the artist. Emma wanted nothing to do with either. She spent her lunches sketching alone in the bleachers, trying to breathe through the noise. But peace never lasted long at MEA. The VCA girls appeared again, phones in hand, their smiles poisonous. "Poor little scholarship girl," Chelsea cooed. "Breaking up the Big Four now?" Emma ignored them, but they circled closer. "Tell us, who's better, Rowan or August?" "Back off," she said, standing. "Oh, hit a nove?" Then Vera shoved her shoulder. The phone clattered to the ground. Recording still running. "Enough!" The voice cut through like a blade. "Rowan." He strode into the bleachers, eyes blazing. "Touch her again, and I'll make sure none of you graduate." The girls scattered, muttering excuses. When the last heel clicked away, Emma turned on him. "You can't keep saving me." He blinked, startled. "I'm not trying to." "Yes, you are. Every time something happens, you swoop in like a hero, and it just makes it worse." Rowan's chest rose and fell. "I can't help it, Emma." Her anger softened at the sound of her name on his lips. He took a step closer. "I used to think power meant control. But the truth is, ever since you showed up, I haven't had any." Her voice trembled. "Then stop trying to own me." "I'm trying to love you." The words hung there, fragile and terrifying. Emma shook her head, backing away. "You don't even know what that means." And before he could answer, she was gone. That night, the storm hit in earnest. Power flickered across the city, rain slamming against glass. Emma sat by her window, hugging her knees, replaying Rowan's words again and again. He couldn't love her, not after everything he'd done, not after the humiliation, the cruelty. And yet the ache in her chest said otherwise. Across town, Rowan paced his room like a caged animal. Every instinct told him to run to her, to make her understand, but pride rooted him in place. On his desk lay August's old sketchbook, one he'd borrowed years ago and never returned. He flipped it open absently and froze. There, on the newest page, was a drawing of Emma, her eyes soft, her smile faint. A note scrawled beneath it read, "For the girl who reminds me what light looks like." Rowan closed the book slowly. So that's how it is. The next day would bring confrontation, heartbreak, and the truth that neither of them could keep denying. But for that one rain-soaked night, the prince, the artist, and the fighter each sat alone in their own corners of the city, bound together by the same impossible feeling. The temperature dropped overnight, sharp and sudden, like the world had decided it was done pretending to be kind. By morning, Maple Elite's glass windows rattled under gray clouds, and the air carried the kind of static that meant a storm was coming. Emma Parker felt it in her chest before the first drop fell. Every hallway looked darker, every voice sharper. She hadn't spoken to Rowan since that night in the bleachers, since he'd said the word love like it hurt to admit. Now the silence between them was heavier than the thunder waiting on the horizon. She shoved her books into her locker, trying to ignore the echo of his voice in her head. I'm trying to love you. Her heart still twisted at the memory. Hazel appeared beside her, chewing on the end of a pen. You look like someone who hasn't slept. Maybe because I haven't, Emma muttered. Hazel tilted her head. Is it Rowan? Emma shut her locker a little too hard. It's everything. This place. The rumors. Him. Me. Before Hazel could answer, a familiar voice carried down the corridor. Parker. Every student turned. Rowan stood at the far end, rain already speckling his shirt from the open courtyard doors. His tie was loose, eyes shadowed with the kind of exhaustion that no amount of arrogance could hide. Emma froze. Can we talk? He asked. I'm busy, she said. Please. The single word, please, wasn't one she'd ever heard from him before. It broke something small inside her, but pride glued her expression in place. After class, she said, walking away. Rowan watched her go, jaw tight, thunder cracking somewhere distant, as if echoing the weight in his chest. By afternoon, the skies opened. Sheets of rain hammered the courtyard, flooding the stone paths and bending the trees sideways. Students huddled beneath the covered walkways, laughing, shouting, filming the chaos on their phones. Emma stayed behind in the art room, the lights flickering over half-finished canvases. She needed the quiet. She needed air that wasn't filled with everyone else's voices. The storm outside was relentless, wind shrieking through the vents. She pressed her palms to the cold glass of the window and whispered, "Just stop." "Please!" The door burst open. "Emma!" She spun around. Rowan stood drenched in the doorway, water dripping from his hair, his uniform clinging to his skin. Behind him, the hallway lights sputtered and died. "The power's out," he said, voice rough. "Everyone's heading to the gym for lockdown." "I'm fine here," she said quickly. "You're not staying alone in this. I don't need your protection." Lightning flashed, illuminating his face, fear hiding behind the stubbornness. "This isn't about protection," he said. "It's about safety." "I said I'm fine." A deafening crack cut her off. The window exploded inward, shards scattering across the floor as the wind howled through the room. Rowan lunged forward, pulling her down just as the glass shattered above them. For a heartbeat there was only noise. Rain, wind, and the thunder of his heartbeat against her ear. When the world steadied, they were crouched behind a desk, his arm around her shoulders, his breath ragged. "You okay?" he asked. Emma nodded weakly, staring at the tiny cuts on his hand from the glass. "You're bleeding." He looked down, shrugging. "It's nothing." She met his eyes, something in her chest shifting. "You idiot." He almost smiled. "You always call me that when you're scared." "Because you keep giving me reasons to be." They had to move. Rain poured through the broken window, soaking the floor and turning the canvases into soggy ruins. Rowan pulled off his jacket, draping it over her shoulders. "We need to get to the main building." She hesitated. "That's across the courtyard." "Then we run." Lightning flared again, white and close. He grabbed her hand before she could protest, and they burst through the doorway into the storm. Wind tore at them, rain stinging like needles. The courtyard was a blur of silver and noise. Emma slipped once, her shoes skidding on the marble, and Rowan's arm shot out to steady her. "Keep going," he shouted. They made it halfway before another gust knocked a tree branch loose. It crashed to the ground beside them, spraying water and debris. Emma froze, heart pounding. Rowan turned back, eyes wild. "Emma! I can't!" He didn't think. He wrapped an arm around her waist, half lifting her through the puddle, half dragging her under the nearest awning. When they finally stumbled into the gym doors, drenched and gasping, the silence that greeted them was deafening. Dozens of students turned to stare. Rowan didn't care. He just pulled off his soaked shirt and tossed it aside, running a trembling hand through his hair. Emma stood beside him, water streaming down her face, clutching his jacket. Someone whispered, "He carried her." Another voice, "They came through the storm together." Hazel appeared with a blanket, wrapping it around Emma's shoulders. "You scared me half to death." Emma glanced at Rowan, at the blood still trickling down his wrist, and whispered, "He saved me." For the first time, she said it without anger. By dawn, the storm had passed, leaving the campus hushed and silver wet. Classes were canceled, but rumors weren't. The story of Rowan carrying Emma through the thunder spread faster than the rain itself. Emma sat in the infirmary, bandaging his hand while he stubbornly insisted he didn't need help. "Hold still," she said. "You don't have to." "I want to." He fell quiet. She wrapped the last strip of gauze and tied it neatly. There, not indestructible after all. Rowan's eyes softened. "Neither are you." Silence stretched between them, but this time it wasn't heavy. Outside, birds began to call through the mist, tentative and new. "I thought I'd lost you out there," he said finally. "You didn't." He looked at her then, really looked. No arrogance, no defenses. Just a boy who'd been lost for a long time and was finally starting to find his way back. Later that evening, when the campus was quiet and the sun dipped low behind the soaked rooftops, they met again in the courtyard where it had all begun. The fountain was still overflowing from the storm, the water reflecting gold and crimson. Rowan reached into his pocket and pulled out something small. A piece of the broken glass from the art room, polished smooth at the edges. He placed it in her palm. "A reminder," he said, "that even broken things can shine." Emma's throat tightened. "Why are you doing this?" "Because I owe you the truth." He took a breath. "I was angry when you showed up. You made me see every part of myself I hated. I thought if I could break you, I wouldn't have to look at it." Her eyes glistened. "And now? Now I just want to be someone you don't have to be afraid of." For a long moment, neither of them moved. Then Emma stepped closer and said softly, "You already are. Just don't make me regret believing that." He nodded, voice barely a whisper. "I won't." The bell tower chimed above them, the sound echoing through the wet air, and for the first time since the chaos began, peace settled over Maple Elite Academy. The city still smelled of rain when Emma pushed open the glass door of the tiny pizza shop on the corner. The red and white sign above it flickered weakly. Half its bulbs burned out. Normally, this place buzzed with laughter and clattering dishes, but the storm had forced it to close early. Inside, the silence hummed. She guided Rowan through the doorway. He was drenched, pale, eyes glassy from fever. Every step left a small trail of water and mud across the tiles. "Sit," she said gently. He slumped into a booth by the window without protest. For once, the ever-arrogant Calloway heir looked completely lost. "The power's still out," she murmured, rifling through drawers behind the counter. "But we can at least get you dry." Rowan tried to joke, his voice a rasp. "You're gonna make me, the Calloway heir, wear a pizza boy uniform?" "Unless you want pneumonia, yes." He managed a weak laugh. "I've never worn anything that wasn't designer." "Well," she said, tossing him a faded red t-shirt with the shop logo. "Welcome to the real world." He caught it, stared at the cotton like it was a foreign object, then looked up at her. "You ruin everything, you know that?" "Excuse me? I tried to take you on a proper date once. 3-star restaurant, private violinist, and we ended up here." Emma folded her arms, amused despite herself. Maybe the universe prefers cheap pizza to violins. He wanted to answer, but a cough cut him short. The sound tore through the quiet. She crossed the room in 2 steps. "Rowan, you're burning up." "I'm fine," he muttered, though his skin was hot beneath her fingertips. "You're not." She glanced toward the back door. "My phone's in the car. The storm fried the lines. You need to lie down." He started to protest, but another wave of dizziness silenced him. She helped him to the staff room, laid him on the couch, and pulled a blanket over his shoulders. The sound of rain drummed steadily on the roof. He shivered. "Cold. I'll find something." She rummaged through the supply closet until she uncovered another spare shirt, then knelt beside him. "Rowan, I'm just trying to help, okay?" He nodded faintly, eyes half closed. As she changed his soaked jacket for the dry one, she caught herself noticing how fragile he looked. Nothing like the swaggering prince who ruled the hallways. His lashes were dark against his skin, his breathing shallow. "Get it together, Emma," she thought. "You're just helping a classmate." She sat on the floor beside him until his breathing slowed and the fever seemed to ease. Outside, thunder rolled one last time, then faded into distance. He woke hours later, the first gray of dawn filtering through the blinds. For a long moment, he didn't know where he was. Then he saw her, curled up in the chair across from him, fast asleep, a blanket slipping from her shoulder. He smiled faintly. She'd stayed. When she stirred, her eyes met his. "Hey," she whispered. "How do you feel?" "Like I got hit by a truck." "Good. That means you're alive." He chuckled, then winced. "You took care of me. You were delirious. I didn't have much choice." He sat up slowly, watching her. "You could have left." "Yeah, well, apparently I'm a sucker for lost causes." Something softened in his gaze. "You're the nicest you've ever been to me. Maybe because, for once, you're not stomping around bullying everyone." He grinned weakly. "So if I changed, if I learned to control that temper, would you like me then?" She hesitated, then looked away. "One step at a time, Calloway." When Hazel found them the next morning, the look on her face was priceless. Half shock, half disbelief. "Emma! Rowan! You two were here all night?" Emma jumped up. "Nothing happened, Hazel. He was sick. The storm." "Relax," Hazel said, grinning. Your secret's safe. Rowan smirked from the couch. See? Once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Parker, don't waste it. Shut up. But as she dragged Hazel outside into the drizzle, she couldn't hide the tiny smile tugging at her lips. The walk home felt longer than usual. Her thoughts tangled around themselves. If her mother found out she'd spent the night with a boy, even if nothing had happened, she'd be grounded until graduation. And yet, when she remembered the way Rowan's voice had softened through the fever, part of her chest ached in a way that scared her. Later that morning, back at school, everything unraveled again. He caught her near the lockers, that familiar smirk back in place, though his eyes held a warmth that hadn't been there before. "You forgot your phone last night," he said, handing it to her. "Thanks." He lingered, leaning close enough that she could smell the faint trace of soap and rain on him. "By the way, Parker, when I asked you to be my girlfriend last night, I'm taking that as a yes." She blinked. "What?" He straightened. "See you later, girlfriend." And before she could protest, he was gone, leaving a trail of chaos and rumors that would soon explode across campus. By the time Emma reached campus again, the storm was only a memory, but it had left its mark. Every hallway hummed with speculation. The tiles still shone faintly with rainwater, and her shoes squeaked with every step, as if reminding her that she was walking through a world that no longer felt solid. She hadn't even reached her locker before Hazel appeared, eyes wide. "Don't panic," Hazel began, which was never a good way to start a conversation. "But everyone thinks you and Rowan spent the night together." Emma froze. "What?" "It's everywhere. Group chats, the school forum, even the teachers are whispering. They're saying you two are official." Emma closed her eyes. Of course he would turn a fever and a storm into a headline. When she found him, he was leaning against the fountain, perfectly composed, sunlight cutting across his hair as if nothing in the world could touch him. "You started this," she said. Rowan looked genuinely surprised. "Started what?" "The rumor that I'm your girlfriend." "Oh, that." He smiled, the kind that could melt or infuriate depending on the minute. "I didn't start it. I just didn't correct anyone." "Same thing." He shrugged. "It's safer that way. No one will mess with you if they think you're with me." Her voice sharpened. "I don't need a bodyguard." "I know, but I wanted to be the reason they finally leave you alone." That stopped her for a second. The quiet sincerity that slipped through his usual arrogance. Then she shook her head, unwilling to give him the victory. "You can't keep making decisions for me, Rowan. I get to choose what my life looks like." He held her gaze, serious now. "Then tell me what you want it to look like." "I want peace," she said. "And right now, peace doesn't look like you." She walked away before he could answer, her heart pounding in a rhythm she didn't understand. By lunch, the story had grown its own wings. Someone claimed they had proof. Blurry photos of two silhouettes in the pizza shop window. The captions were cruel, creative, relentless. Hazel tried to help delete posts, but it was like chasing wildfire. Emma ate alone, pretending not to notice the way people stared. Her appetite vanished long before her courage did. When August slid into the seat opposite her, the relief was almost painful. "Thought you might need company," he said. She smiled weakly. "Thanks. I didn't think you'd still want to be seen with me." "Please. Half of them think I'm next in line for the scandal." That earned a laugh. Small, but real. He leaned forward. "I know Rowan. He doesn't mean to cause chaos, but he's never learned how not to. I just wish he'd learn before I drown in it," she said quietly. August's voice softened. "Then let me help you stay above water." Later, she found herself in the library, trying to lose herself in homework that refused to make sense. Her focus kept slipping to the memory of Rowan's feverish face, to the way he'd murmured her name before falling asleep. She hated that it mattered. She hated that she cared. When she finally packed her books, Rowan was waiting by the door. "You're stalking me now?" He smiled faintly. "No, just trying to talk before you disappear again." She sighed. "Fine, talk." He hesitated, then said quietly, "I don't remember much from last night. Just that you were there when no one else would have been." "That's because you were sick." "I know, but it meant something to me." She crossed her arms. "Rowan, you can't just rewrite who we are because you caught a fever." He looked down, then back up at her. "Maybe the fever burned off some of the stupid." She almost smiled. Almost. The next morning, someone had plastered new posters on the school bulletin board. Photos of her and Rowan walking through the storm, drenched, arms around each other. The caption read, "The Queen of Pizza and her Prince of Chaos." Laughter followed her down the hall. This time, though, when she reached her locker, she didn't find graffiti or insults. She found a small envelope taped to the door. Inside was a key charm on a thin chain and a note in Rowan's unmistakable handwriting. "I can't undo the rumors, but maybe I can give you something that's actually true. This is the only spare key to the shop. Our place, if you ever need to hide from the world." Emma stared at the note for a long time, feeling something inside her shift again. Maybe it wasn't about the rumors anymore. Maybe it was about two people trying to learn how to exist in the same storm without destroying each other. The storm had passed, but it left something raw behind. Days later, the air over Maple Elite still carried that strange stillness that comes after thunder. The kind that feels like waiting. Emma felt it too. Everywhere she went, someone whispered her name. Not with mockery anymore, but with curiosity. The scholarship girl who had tamed Rowan Calloway. If only they knew how untrue that was. Rowan. He couldn't get her out of his head. He'd meant to protect her from the gossip. But every attempt just twisted tighter around them both. Now, every time he entered a room, someone smirked and asked where his girlfriend was. When he caught August and Emma talking by the fountain, something ugly stirred in him. Something he hadn't felt since the days when anger was the only thing that made sense. He shoved his hands in his pockets and told himself to keep walking. He didn't. Emma, she saw him coming before August did. The sharp line of his shoulders, the storm still written across his eyes. "Here we go," she murmured. Rowan stopped a few feet away. "So this is what we're doing now? Whispering in corners?" August frowned. "We're having a conversation." "About what?" Rowan's voice was deceptively calm. "About how you keep turning her life into a headline," August said. Emma stepped between them. "Enough, both of you." Rowan's gaze met hers, fierce and unguarded. "You really think he's the one who understands you better than I do?" "That's not the point," she said quietly. "Then what is the point, Emma?" "Because I'm starting to forget." She could feel August tense beside her, could feel her own pulse thrumming. "You don't get to demand an explanation," she said. "You've hurt me, Rowan, and now you're confusing guilt with love." The words landed like a slap, and she hated herself for how much they hurt him. He looked away. "Maybe I deserve that." "August, Later that evening, August found Rowan alone in the gym, fists slamming into the punching bag until his knuckles bled. "You done proving you're indestructible?" he asked. Rowan didn't stop swinging. "You think you're better for her? Go ahead. I'm done fighting." "No," August said quietly. "You're just scared." That froze Rowan mid-punch. "You've spent your whole life using anger as armor," August continued. "But she sees past it. That's why you can't let her go." Rowan pressed his forehead to the bag, breathing hard. "If I let her close, I'll ruin her." "Then learn not to," August said, and walked out. Emma. The next day, she found a note in her locker. "Meet me after school, please. R." She almost didn't go. She told herself she didn't owe him another chance. And yet when the final bell rang, she was already walking toward the old art room. He was waiting by the window, sunlight spilling across his shoulders. For a second she saw not the bully or the prince, but the boy who had nearly died in a storm, trying to protect her. "I needed to see you," he said. "Why?" "To apologize properly. For the rumors, for the way I've treated you, for everything." She wanted to believe him. She really did. But trust was something fragile. Once broken, it didn't fit together the same way. "You keep saying sorry," she said softly. "Maybe stop saying it and start showing it." He nodded. "Then I'll start now." He opened his hand. Resting on his palm was a tiny silver key. "The spare key to the pizza shop," he said. "If you ever need somewhere quiet, somewhere safe, it's yours." She looked up at him, searching his face for the trick, and found none. "Why are you doing this?" she whispered. "Because you make me want to be better," he said. "And because I owe you 1,000 small things I'll probably never find the right way to say." Outside, the first hints of a new storm rolled over the horizon. They stood together for a long moment, the silence between them heavy with things unsaid. Regret, affection, fear, and something that felt dangerously like hope. Neither of them noticed the dark shape watching from across the courtyard. A former classmate whose anger had been festering since the day Rowan Calloway's name ruined his life. Peace never lasts long at Maple Elite. One rumor fades, another rises to take its place, and before she knew it, Emma was at the center of a new storm she didn't create. It began with whispers, a photo, a claim, a twisted version of what had happened during that weekend at the resort. By the time she arrived at school, it wasn't whispers anymore. It was laughter. And the posters. The walls were plastered with screenshots and captions, all edited, all cruel. She stopped in front of one, the corners curling from humidity. Her face stared back at her beside Rowan's. The words, "Scholarship Girl Scores a Prince," printed underneath. It wasn't even the insult that hurt the most. It was the reminder of how much he'd already done to protect her, and how his name alone could ignite a war. Rowan. He didn't find out until third period. By then, half the school had seen the posters. By lunch, half of them had been torn down. By evening, everyone knew who'd done the tearing. Rowan Calvert, the Calloway heir, standing in the hall. Crumpling photos of himself and Emma, with a look that made even the teachers go silent. When the group responsible came swaggering toward him, laughing about jokes, Rowan didn't even speak. He just stepped forward, close enough that they could see the tremor in his jaw. "Whoever started this," he said quietly, "find a new hobby. Because if I see another photo, I won't be the one you should be afraid of." Emma will. And he walked away, leaving them to wonder what that meant. Emma. She found him after class, leaning against the fence behind the gym, eyes fixed on the clouds. You can't keep doing that, she said. Doing what? Turning every problem into a declaration of war. He smiled without humor. You think I'm trying to be noble? I think you're trying to protect me in the only way you know how. By breaking something. That silenced him for a moment. Then, softer. What am I supposed to do, Emma? They humiliate you, and I just stand by? Maybe you start by asking what I need instead of deciding for me. He looked at her then, really looked. The girl who'd once been just a target had somehow become his compass. When August returned to school that week, he could feel it. The tension, the distance. Emma smiled when she saw him, but it didn't reach her eyes. Rowan avoided him altogether. So when he caught Emma sketching in the art room, he closed the door quietly and sat across from her. You and Rowan, he said carefully. Is it serious? She sighed, staring at the pencil marks bleeding across the paper. I don't even know what it is. He keeps hurting people, trying to prove he's not the bad guy everyone says he is. Maybe he's trying to prove it to himself, August said. He looked up, surprised. You sound like you feel sorry for him. I do, a little. But I also know what it's like to lose something you care about because you waited too long to fight for it. Oh, Rowan. That night, Rowan stood by the fountain again, watching his reflection ripple under the lights. He built a kingdom on control. Perfect posture, perfect words, perfect family name. Now, every time Emma smiled, that kingdom cracked a little more. He told himself it was weakness. But maybe, for the first time, weakness didn't feel so terrible. When he turned to leave, a voice called from the shadows. Hey, Calloway. It was Clay, an old face from the past, eyes filled with a bitterness that hadn't faded. You look good for someone who ruins lives, Clay said, stepping closer. Remember me? You got me expelled. My family lost everything. Rowan's chest tightened. You did that to yourself. Clay smiled, the kind of smile that meant trouble. Maybe, but tonight, I get even. The next day, Rowan didn't show up. Not in class, not in the cafeteria, not even at the fountain. His absence felt like a missing heartbeat in the rhythm of the school. When she checked her messages, she saw one unread text, unknown number, block quote. He's with me. If you want him back, come alone. Her blood went cold. She didn't think. She just ran. Headline, August. By the time August heard what happened, Emma was already gone. Hazel told him, eyes wide, and Emma, she went after him. He didn't hesitate. He grabbed his jacket and sprinted for the gates. Whatever had happened between them, one thing was clear. They were all bound together now by something bigger than pride or pain. The night was darker than any storm had been, and somewhere beyond the old industrial district, the choices they made next would decide who they became. The air smelled like rust and rain. Streetlights buzzed above the abandoned factory lot. Their flicker, casting long, uncertain shadows. She spotted them almost immediately. A group of figures at the far end of the warehouse. Rowan slumped to his knees, Clay standing above him, anger etched into every sharp movement. Rowan, she shouted before she could stop herself. Every head turned. Clay smirked. Well, look who showed up. The little savior. Let him go, she said, forcing her voice not to tremble. This isn't who you are. Clay's eyes glinted. No. You don't know who I am anymore. He took a step toward her, and for a moment Emma thought she saw something break behind his anger. Desperation, the kind that only comes from years of being invisible. But then Rowan, bruised and unsteady, lifted his head. "Leave her alone," he rasped. "You want me? Fine, but she's got nothing to do with this." Emma rushed forward before they could stop her, kneeling beside him. "You shouldn't have come," he whispered. "You think I'd let you handle this alone?" she shot back. He gave a small, broken laugh. "You're insane." "Right back at you." She looked up at Clay again. "This isn't payback. This is just more pain." Something in her tone, soft but steady, reached him. Clay hesitated, jaw tight, then turned away with a muttered curse. "Forget it. He's not worth the trouble." And then he was gone, disappearing into the rain that had started to fall again, leaving only silence behind. Rowan. He wasn't sure when the shaking stopped. Maybe it didn't. All he knew was that Emma's hands were on his shoulders, warm and real, and he couldn't stop staring at her. "Why?" he asked finally. "Why would you come after me?" "Because I was tired of you being the one who always saves me," she said. Maybe it was my turn. Something inside him broke in the gentlest way. "Emma," he said, his voice cracking. "I don't just like you. It's more than that. When I thought I was going to lose you, it felt like the world went quiet." She smiled through tears. "You have a terrible way of showing it." "I know," he whispered, "but I'm learning." She touched his cheek, thumb brushing the cut near his temple. "Then show me. Be the version of you that doesn't need to fight everything to feel alive." He caught her hand, holding it against his face as if it anchored him. "Only if you stay," he said. "I can't promise I'll be perfect, but I can promise I'll try." HR. August. He arrived minutes later, out of breath, heart pounding with fear. For a moment he thought he was too late, until he saw them, sitting side by side beneath the broken awning, rain falling softly around them. Rowan looked up. "She's safe." August nodded, relief washing through him. "Good." He met Emma's eyes and smiled. Small but sincere. "I guess I was right. You do bring out the best in him." Emma reached out and squeezed his hand. "You brought out the best in me, August." He held her gaze for a moment longer before stepping back, letting the quiet say what words couldn't. Some stories didn't end in grand declarations. Sometimes they ended with understanding, and that was enough. Emma. Rowan healed slowly. Days passed, the rumors faded, and life at Maple Elite began to resemble normal again. But something fundamental had shifted. People still watched when she walked by, but not with ridicule anymore, with curiosity, maybe even respect. People. She found herself back at the pizza shop one afternoon, the place where everything had begun. The bell over the door jingled, and Rowan stepped in, cleaner now, softer somehow. He carried 2 cups of hot chocolate. "Truce?" he asked. She smiled. "You say that every time." "I mean it every time." They sat in the same booth where a storm once raged outside, but now the only sound was laughter and the occasional clatter of plates. He leaned across the table, eyes bright. "So, does this mean you'll finally admit you like me?" She sipped her drink slowly, savoring the warmth. "Maybe I already did." Rowan grinned. "That's good enough for me." Outside, the world glowed gold with sunset. Emma watched the light trace the edge of his smile and realized that sometimes even the people who break us are the ones who teach us how to heal. And as the last bit of rain from the roof dripped onto the pavement, she thought, maybe storms don't always destroy. Sometimes they make things grow. Emma. Hospitals have a strange kind of silence. Not the heavy kind that weighs on you, but the kind that hums like the air right before sunrise. It felt like when I sat beside Rowan's bed. His face, usually full of restless energy, was peaceful now. The bruises had softened to faint shadows, the kind that only you'd notice if you knew where to look. The monitors beeped in steady rhythm, like a quiet metronome guiding us back to normal life. Hazel had fallen asleep in the waiting room. August had gone to get coffee. It was just me and him, and the steady, unhurried rhythm of a world that seemed to have paused for us. I reached out and brushed a stray lock of hair from his forehead. "You really scared me," I whispered. For a moment, I thought he wouldn't hear. Then his voice, rough, soft, familiar, broke the quiet. "Didn't mean to." My breath caught. "You're awake?" He smiled weakly, eyes half open. "You've been talking to me for hours, Parker. I figured I should finally answer." A laugh slipped through my tears. "You're impossible. Only for you." Rowan. He'd never thought much about what alive meant until that moment. The sharp brightness of light, the sound of someone's laughter, the warmth of her hand on his arm. The doctors had told him he was lucky. He preferred to think he was stubborn. "Everyone's been worried," Emma said, settling back in the chair. "Even Hazel's been nice to you. That's like a miracle." He chuckled, wincing at the ache in his ribs. "I'll make sure to thank her later. Maybe send her a pizza." "Please don't. You'll start another rumor." He turned his head toward her, smile softening. "Let them talk." Her heart fluttered at that, how he said it so casually, as if the world's judgment meant nothing anymore. He caught her staring. "What?" "Nothing," she said quickly. "You're just different." "Good different or bad different?" She hesitated. "Both." He laughed quietly. "I can live with that." He came back with coffee, just in time to see Emma laughing, the kind of laugh that came from relief, not happiness. For a second, he stood in the doorway, unsure whether to walk in or walk away. Then he smiled, set the coffees down, and joined them. "About time you woke up, man," he said, handing Rowan a cup. "We were starting to think you'd fake a coma just to get sympathy." Rowan grinned. "You're not entirely wrong." Emma rolled her eyes. "Please don't encourage him." "Too late," August said. "He's already impossible." The three of them sat together, light streaming in through the window. And for a fleeting moment, it felt like everything that had broken was slowly finding its way back together. Emma. Days turned into a week. Rowan's recovery was slow but steady, the kind of healing that demanded patience. She visited after school, sometimes bringing him notes, sometimes just sitting by his bed, sketching while he dozed. One afternoon, as she packed up to leave, he called out, "Emma." "Yeah?" "Don't disappear again." The simplicity of it undid her. "I won't," she said softly. Rowan. When he was finally discharged, the world outside felt louder than he remembered. The gates of Maple Elite stood tall, the students staring in awe as the infamous Rowan Calloway walked in, bruised but standing, the storm tamer himself. But his eyes weren't on them. They were on the girl waiting by the steps, her backpack slung carelessly over one shoulder. Emma Parker. The reason he'd learned that vulnerability wasn't weakness, it was just another kind of strength. He walked up to her, the crowd buzzing behind them. "Miss me?" She smiled. "A little." He leaned closer. "Only a little? Don't push your luck." That was the day things began to change. No grand speeches, no fireworks. Just two people quietly deciding not to run from what they felt anymore. Emma. Rumors spread fast at Maple Elite, but for once, she didn't mind. Because this time, they weren't about scandal or fights. They were whispers of something new. Someone had seen Rowan helping first years carry their books. Someone else had caught him actually thanking a teacher. By Friday, the story had twisted into myth that Rowan Calloway had been replaced by an alien who smiled and said please. Hazel found her at lunch, dropping a tray beside her with a grin. "So, rumor has it your boyfriend's gone soft." Emma nearly choked on her sandwich. "He's not my—" "Oh, please. The way he looks at you, he's a changed man. You're the reason the apocalypse hasn't hit yet." Emma rolled her eyes, but she couldn't hide the blush that betrayed her. "He's just trying." "Trying what exactly?" Hazel teased. "To be better," Emma said quietly. Hazel's smirk softened. "And do you like him better this way?" Emma's answer came slowly. "I think I like that he's trying for himself." Rowan. For the first time in his life, people smiled at him for reasons that had nothing to do with money or fear. It was new, strange, uncomfortable, but it wasn't bad. He found himself spending more time at the art room, the library, the courtyard. Everywhere Emma went, it seemed his footsteps weren't far behind. Not because he had to protect her, but because he wanted to see what kind of world she lived in. One afternoon, he caught her painting near the window, sunlight spilling over her hair. He leaned against the frame. "So this is where you disappear to." She didn't look up. "If I told you, it wouldn't be a secret." "I thought we didn't keep secrets anymore." She smiled faintly. "Then I guess you're part of the secret." He laughed softly. "That's dangerously sweet, Parker." "Don't get used to it," she warned, but her smile stayed. August was happy for them, or at least, he told himself he was. He still joined them for lunch, still cracked jokes and teased Rowan about his domestic phase. But sometimes, when Emma looked at Rowan a certain way, he felt the familiar ache of what might have been. Hazel noticed. She always did. And Pop. "You're too good a guy to sulk forever," she said one afternoon, poking at his arm. "I'm not sulking." Then why do you look like a sad golden retriever every time they laugh together?" He sighed. "Because I wanted to be the one who made her laugh like that." Hazel smiled gently. "Then make someone else laugh like that." For the first time in weeks, he actually considered that maybe he could. Emma. Spring arrived quietly. Warm breezes, softer mornings, the smell of jasmine drifting through open windows. It felt like everything that had once been sharp was now rounding into something gentler. She and Rowan fell into a rhythm. Morning coffees, late study sessions. Arguments that ended with smiles instead of slammed doors. One evening, they sat outside the pizza shop, their pizza shop, sharing a slice under fairy lights strung across the awning. "I still can't believe you bought this place," she said. He shrugged. "It was cheaper than therapy." She laughed. "You are impossible." "And yet," he said, leaning closer, "you're still here." She met his gaze, and for a heartbeat, everything else faded. The laughter, The lights, the city hum. "I guess I am," she whispered. Rowan, he didn't kiss her that night. He didn't have to, because sometimes the best moments don't need to be rushed. They just need to be real. For the first time, he felt like he wasn't chasing redemption. He was just learning how to love without breaking something in the process. Emma. Later, as she walked home, the wind carried fragments of laughter and the smell of rain. And she thought, maybe storms don't end. Maybe they just learn to fall more softly. Emma. Normal. It was a strange word for a girl who'd spent months dodging insults and rumors. For someone who'd once believed that peace was something that only happened to other people. But lately, normal didn't sound so bad. It sounded like the squeak of sneakers in the school hallway, Hazel's dramatic sighs during chemistry, August humming off-key in art club, and Rowan sitting behind her in literature class, pretending to pay attention, but doodling little cartoon pizzas in the corner of his notebook. Sometimes she'd glance over her shoulder, and he'd grin like they shared a secret no one else could see. And maybe they did. Crip 4, Rowan. This is clearly a powerful explanation. He'd spent most of his life being the center of every room. Now, he preferred standing quietly beside her, the background character in someone else's story. And somehow, it suited him. He found himself doing things he never imagined. Tutoring first years, apologizing to people he'd once made miserable, listening instead of barking orders. He wasn't trying to rewrite his reputation anymore. He was just trying to live like the person Emma already believed he could be. When Hazel caught him holding the door open for a teacher, she nearly dropped her books. "Who are you, and what have you done with the real Rowan Calloway?" He smirked. "Wouldn't you like to know?" Hazel rolled her eyes. Emma's a miracle worker. He glanced toward the end of the hall, where Emma was laughing with August. "Yeah," he said softly. "She really is." August had always been the quiet artist, the kind of person who saw the world in sketches and soft colors. Now, he was learning that life didn't need to stay on paper. His friendship with Emma remained steady, uncomplicated, built on trust rather than longing. And Hazel. Hazel was chaos. Barge into his studio, steal his pencils, critique his drawings like a critic reviewing a blockbuster film. He pretended to hate it. He didn't. One afternoon, she noticed a new canvas propped near the window. It wasn't finished, but she recognized the shapes. A group of 4 friends under a canopy of cherry blossoms, sunlight dappling their faces. "Is that us?" she asked. "Maybe." She grinned. "Then I better look good." "You always do," he said, and only realized how honest it sounded when she stopped teasing. Emma. By late April, Maple Elite was blooming again. The courtyard trees burst into pink and white, and for once, the world felt lighter. She and Rowan sat under one of those trees during lunch, sharing an ice cream that melted faster than they could eat it. "You ever think about how weird this all is?" she asked. "Define weird." "Us," she said, gesturing between them. "If someone told me last semester that I'd be sitting here sharing ice cream with the guy who once tried to get me expelled, I'd have laughed in their face." Rowan tilted his head. "And now?" "Now I just laugh less and eat faster before you steal the last bite." He grinned, snatching the spoon. "Too late." She lunged playfully, their laughter echoing through the courtyard, the kind that made other students look over, smiling because joy was contagious. First, he'd thought love was supposed to be complicated, dramatic, messy. But with her, it was quiet. It was the kind of thing that happened between heartbeats. Steady, unhurried, real. He walked her home that evening, the city glowing gold in the distance. Halfway there, she stopped and turned to him. "What?" he asked. "I just realized," she said softly. "You don't look angry anymore." He blinked. "Was I that bad?" She smiled. "You were terrifying." He laughed under his breath. "Guess I found something better to be." Room. That night, she wrote in her journal for the first time in months. No rants, no tears, just a single line. Sometimes healing doesn't feel like fireworks. Sometimes it's just laughter over ice cream. She closed the notebook and felt lighter than she had in a long time. Hazel cornered Emma the next morning by the lockers, arms crossed. "So, when's the wedding?" Emma groaned. "Please stop." Hazel laughed. "Just saying. The way he looks at you, it's only a matter of time." Emma smiled, shaking her head. "We're just figuring things out." "Yeah," Hazel said with a knowing grin. "That's what all great love stories say in Act 3. And maybe she was right. Maybe the chaos had just been the beginning. Because sometimes the new normal wasn't about forgetting the past. It was about finally being brave enough to write something better.